So here we're going to take a look at Joe Brown's clean and jerk from the recent meet we had at Westchester at the Winter Classic. So let's run this in full speed first, then I'm going to hone in on a couple key points I see about this lift and the technique. Alright, so we got a lot of little pieces to look at here. The first thing I'm going to take a look at, this is something that Joe has experimented with back and forth, but I'm just going to comment on this for everyone watching. If we draw a line straight up from the bar, we're kind of at a little bit of an angle here. So let's try to get right when it leaves. The bar, he's kind of behind the bar. Ideally, you want your shoulders directly over or forward of the bar. That's the one thing I see on this that I want to take a look at. Because then what happens is when the bar leaves the ground, it pulls him very much forward. This is something, I mean, the back angle changing to some degree is something you'll see on some international level lifters. They'll get really set off the floor and drift a little bit forward. But this seems like a little bit more extreme than typical, but it's not. That's something I would look at on this lift, but maybe not be a huge issue. So then let's look as the bar passes the knee, it comes in, and what I see is he really needs to be more aggressive, and he's got a little more pull in that. Like he can get a little higher on his toes and get a little more pull. And you can see that right foot doesn't really shuffle, and that's because he doesn't really get an aggressive finish to the pull. So let's just look at the finish of that pull and see how that is. So it's a very somewhat flat finish to his pull up here. So if we look at that, he needs to have the bar in a little bit closer. I think it bounced off a little bit, but he just needs more finish. He should rise a little bit more and just have more power, more shrug overall from that position. It's just very flat at the top. And then because it's very flat, when he receives it, let's take a look at how he receives it. Receive okay, but how he receives it, it's very flat, and it causes him to kind of lean forward a little bit and have. That's not bad. So let's take a look at the jerk. So this is one of the better time jerks I've seen Joe do, so that's really good. Let's take a look at the characteristics of this one. So when you jerk, you want to dip straight down. You want the knees and hips to drop at the same time. He does come, I would say overall, he might dip a little too low, and he comes a little forward in that dip. Not too bad. This is one of the better ones I've seen him do. Then I would like to see the front foot travel a little more forward and make up some of that space. Because we look at where the bar ends up, he doesn't really get all the way through. If that front foot stepped an extra inch or two, it would end up being a better jerk. I like the foot width. That's really good. If we look at this, I mean, he has plenty of room. He could get a little bit lower in that position and bend his knee more, and that will allow him to do more weight. But for this particular weight, I think that's a pretty good knee bend. So overall, that's the analysis of Joe's lift. I mean, when I look at the lift, I look in the beginning at that start position. That start position really struck me in the clean as something to maybe experiment changing. The other thing that struck me is kind of just this very muted finish here. I think Joe mentioned before one of the things he worked on is being a little more midfoot off the ground, and that would be something I would think if he's a little more midfoot off the ground. From what I've seen with lifters, that would make the pull there a little better. So that's the analysis of Joe's lift. I hope everyone enjoyed